colleagues here in the seminar. And today we have the pleasure and honor, I love this phrase actually, sorry, the pleasure and honor to welcome two extremely interesting cultural producers, I would say. This allows me to put you together in one framework. So first of all, the artist Minaret, who is the author of several extremely influential installations of public art pieces in Warsaw and elsewhere. In the world, she has been discussed, debated millions of times, so I'm super happy that she accepted this invitation to discuss the world again, because I believe after all the books, catalogs, texts, and discussions, it might be already a little bit much, so I'm super happy that you accepted the invitation, and I'm also extremely happy that you are here in person. The plans were to maybe see each other via Skype, and which was actually scary for everybody here because we didn't know whether it would work out technically, so I'm super happy to have you here. Among the work of Joanna Rajkowska, we can count the palm tree, the greetings from Jerusalem Alley, situated in the London Gola nearby here. The oxygen generator project of actually a water point, to put it very shortly, that integrated the whole district of Platformowski and nearby. And tens of other works which I will not depict, which maybe we will discuss later on. And my expectation was, I hope that can happen, that you will also introduce us to some projects that you plan for the future or that you are working on right now by the end of the seminar somehow. So, just to jump to the schedule of today's seminar, we're going to have a short presentation of the Minaret project by Joanna Rajkowska, then a lecture by Dr. Monika Bobako, whom I'm going to introduce in a second. Then we will have a discussion, maybe we will answer to some issues raised by Monika Bobako immediately, and then we'll open the discussion, or we'll open the discussion and then we'll join, or however it's going to be comfortable. So then we'll make a break, and I think this is going to take already like 2 hours more or less. So then after the break, I would like to discuss a little bit the texts that I suggested we read, the text of Rosanne Deutsch concerning public art. And I believe that Nancy Fraser, we might also try to access her, but it might also happen that since we also read the text for the next seminar, that we can sort of combine Nancy Fraser for the next seminar. But let's see how it's going to happen. And also I would like to reserve like 15 minutes or something like that to Joanna Rajkowska to present the future project, because I think this is maybe even more exciting to be able to already suggest to see the new work. And so I will introduce Monika Bobako, and then I will go further. So Monika Bobako is the adjunct professor at the Adam Mickiewicz University in Poznań, but also the professor, I don't know how, the professor in the University of Abdelhamid in in Algeria.
Visiting professor. This is not my regular.
Yeah, visiting professor there. But I believe that the cooperation between Adam Mickiewicz University and the University in Algeria might be closer thanks to you. So this is also a very ambitious and very, I would say, a person who really works for the modernization of the university in Poland. Because Monika Bobako works in the Pracownia Pytań Granicznych, so in the, how to say it in English, in the workshop for
kind of interdepartmental unit established to promote interdisciplinary teaching and research.
So more practically, it means to offer interdisciplinary lectures, seminars, and other academic practices to the students of the whole University of Adam Mickiewicz, which allows on one hand the practice of interdisciplinary research and science production, but also allows the students to see how cross-disciplinary approaches can be successful. So this has been going on for several years now, and it's, I think, the pioneering institution in Poland to do this kind of humanistics, social sciences, and also other fields combined together and presented to the students. So I think this is an exceptional program, and I'm very fond of it actually. But there is also a list of the publications of Dr. Monika Bobako, which include perspective of the politics of recognition. The book that has been published in Poland and is, I believe, one of the most important political philosophy books that we have had published in recent years, so actually I totally recommend we all read it, and if you would be so kind and give us the title in Polish, it would be fantastic, because I believe for some people it might...
Demokracja wobec różnicy.
Demokracja wobec różnicy. So this is still, I believe it's still available actually. So you might really want to consider reading that, because I think it's a super comprehensive discussion of recent debates over, I would suggest the interventions of philosophers of difference into the conceptions of political philosophy. And the feminist part of this book is super interesting and extremely valuable, also because it gives access to theories that are not really worked upon in academic departments in Poland. So this can be, for people who have never studied feminist political philosophy, this can be really the first introduction to it. On the other hand, I believe that it's also a book that allows to understand the controversies of contemporary political philosophy on a very high level already. So it's a combination of, like, on one hand, introduction to some less known political philosophies, but on the other, the debates are at the core of global political philosophy. So I think it's quite a fascinating book, I must say. And she's been publishing in the multiple journals and magazines, but the thing that I think was the paper that I think was very influential, at least in key departments of cultural studies, philosophy, and social sciences in the world, was written about, was an effort to introduce the theory of race and racism into the analysis of the working class people in Poland. So this was a kind of maybe the first, one of the first efforts that Dr. Kontr-Publiczności made here in Poland to analyze the ways of alienating, of oppressing the working class people in comparison with racist practices in other countries. So I believe that this kind of interdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary approaches are maybe one of the key impacts of Dr. Kontr-Publiczności's work, and have proven to be, at least among my students, it's been super popular to not only read the text, but also to really apply it in dissertations or in papers, etc. So I'm super happy to host you both here, and maybe I will give floor. I mean, if you want to add to the introduction, please do so, because I cannot give titles of your papers or work or whatever, so if there's anything you find necessary to add, please do. So I will give the floor to Jan Rajkowska first, and then to Dr. Monika Nowak, and maybe let's work on both of them, because it's been a little bit quiet on your side. So, thanks.
Well, as an introduction, maybe I can add that our work in between based in two countries. Here I live and work in a little village in Torin, in Mogro, where I have a studio where I actually produce everything that goes everywhere I work. And I work or I live and study maybe in London now, so it's like in between situation. And today we decided that as an introduction, I will tell you a little bit about Minaret, which, as you see, ended up in 2011, just a long time ago, and we actually buried the project officially as unrealized project. This is in Polish. I simply translate everything. That's our team. Now it's just fast. Yeah, well, it's a big team. It's very many people involved. In the end of our attempt to realize the project, we set up a collective, but we also failed. Anyway, the narrative that was created alongside the project was really moving because it was a mural, and the mural is kind of a base for my story. What was the project about? First of all, the project was an attempt to convert a chimney, a smokestack, into a tower of Minaret, not as a religious symbol, but rather as a structural part of Minaret, well, non-existing, of a mosque, which is of course non-existing mosque. Not necessarily as a religious symbol, but rather as a cultural sign, signifying the presence of Islamic community. But not only that, also kind of indicating the future not only of Poland, but also the whole continent, where the statistics in terms of migration obviously grow. So the project started in 2000, I guess, what was it? 2008. Can't even remember anymore. In 2008 I was invited by the city authorities of Poznań, and I spent 2 months researching the city and its life. And then finally I came up with 2 proposals. One of them was Minaret, and I decided to go for it. This is the moment where, in this mural, I'm presenting the proposal to the vice president of the city, which was called Frankiewicz. It was quite an important moment, because several hours after the introduction, after the conversation, the president, or the mayor, the vice mayor of the city, he fell off the horse, had a terrible accident, and several weeks later he simply died. He was the only supporter of the project, so at that point we knew that we were not going actually to do this project anymore. But that's pretty much how it started. That's how it started. I had the people around me very much supporting the project, but also and mainly the enemies. But anyway, this mural depicted this moment of joy that the citizens of the city are enjoying the vision of building the minaret, which was actually quite surprising. I still don't know this person who actually was behind the mural. I was apparently a student, and I would always ask this person why this moment of joy, and kind of almost fulfilled project pictured by the people working on it. And yeah, what kind of minaret we were intending to build is an exact copy of a minaret in Jenin, in the West Bank, in the north of West Bank, because I spent some time there, and I noticed that it was exceptionally beautiful minaret, an exceptionally beautiful mosque actually, which I will show you in a minute. I don't want to take too much time because Monica has a proper lecture today, so this is just as an introduction for you to know what we're talking about. And yeah, this is the actual minaret here, right? And this is the top of it, the head of it. And this is a pearl of Ottoman architecture, actually, built in 1566 funded by Fatima Khatun, who was wife of the Damascus governor, and the name of it was Izeh. That was a larger structure that she founded, but kind of urban structure, but she was the person behind building this part. A couple of photographs of how it actually evolved, because it wasn't always looking the same. It went through historical disasters and was always rebuilt. As you see, this balcony in the middle of the height, pretty much, which disappeared later. So that's quite interesting. We kind of joined the history of this evolving form of minaret at some point, but it wasn't always like that. And that's pretty much it. This is the two juxtaposed images of the chimney and of the minaret in Poznań at the junction of Nowe Garbary and Estkowskiego Street, where actually I thought this kind of post-industrial almost location, the image of it very much fits to my memory of what I've seen in the West Bank, and I can't tell you pretty much or exactly why, but I thought this is the place where I should put it. And a couple of words about the location in a Poznań context, if you like, because that's the same place about 100 years earlier, which there's also not, we don't have time to talk about the history of this place, but pretty much, as you see, industrialized. The buildings around the actual chimney were changing owners, from Rosenberg brothers, who produced shoes there, to Edward Kręglewski, paper. It was pretty much dealing with paper, and also which was nationalized after the Second World War, and so on and so on. I mean, of course, the story is very long. This is the map of the place. As you see, and that's quite important, there is a dual carriageway, a very busy road going nearby. So it was not pretty much intended to be looked at from a close distance. Of course, people lived there too, around these residential buildings, but it was also meant to be kind of an illusion while you drive. So, as if you kind of mistook the places. And that's the exact look of both towers, chimney and the minaret. Similar proportions. This is the same camera, so yeah. And that's the final stage of this first attempt to build a minaret, the three-dimensional, 3D rendering of very beautifully actually made in terms of substances, the sandstone, the tower of minaret. And that's exact image of it as we planned it. Yeah, and then also maybe I don't want to skip exactly the images, that are better because these renderings are made by an architect. This one and that one. This is quite moving because with the Polish names on the road signs. So that was pretty much telling, and that's the exact view from the dual carriageway. So we really wanted to have this, you know, this illusion to be kept as surreal. Yeah. I skipped that because it's going to take a little bit too much. These are maps and visual axes. What was quite important, I just focused on one. As you see this white line, it goes from the Catholic Cathedral through this non-existent chimney, or minaret, existing chimney, to synagogue, which changed its form after the Second World War. But that's pretty much the axis. I wanted people be able to see the three buildings in a line, or one behind the other. I thought that was quite important. What's also important, all these buildings around, the significant buildings, they were changing its architectural form many times in history, like synagogue, which lost its dome and looks pretty much like on the photograph in the right corner, and the plans are unfortunately to be like that on the well, I hope this will never happen, but that's pretty much an Israeli fortress. Yeah, including cathedral, which also changed its form many times. It came back finally to its neo-Gothic look. The project, what's important, the project had three phases. The first one was exactly building the tower of minaret, using proper materials like sandstone. The second phase was, and I skipped that because this is architectural work that we've done, that failed completely. This didn't go through. That's failure, Barashka's failure. And then we went through the phase of course, public debates, which usually ended up in a so-called Polish hell, where everyone was talking and not necessarily taking the subject as the central subject. Year by year, that was quite tiring, and that's the picture of this Polish hell. Quite exact.
I recognize that for me it seems quite convincing.
Yes,
the image,
absolutely.
There were also different institutions involved in the discussion. Of course, this is not presented by.
That's the mural I just wanted to mention that, yeah, well, that's pretty much what's left from the project, is this mural that is aging gradually. Yeah, I just don't want to take too much time. But the second version of the minaret was just delicate drawing installed around the actual chimney, made out of LED lights, so that they would look like straight lines, like exactly like architectural drawing, very like a sketch. So very delicate, very, I think, very suggestive, but at the same time quite ephemeral, and was meant to be for the duration of the festival, in the frame of which we were working. So it would be like 10 days, I guess, not more. We didn't get permission to do that either, so we've done it. And the last phase of the project that also failed was an educational project, which we actually were discussing exactly here in this building with Professor Borchak, who is one of the prominent sociologists in this country, and a team of people involved in education. We never got any support from the city of Poznań, so the project also failed. This is pretty much the preparation, yeah, that's the educational project. And the end of it was this very moment of a burial of the project, when we said this is the story of the minaret that wasn't built, simply as a statement. And we tried to meet all people who were in some way involved in the process of building or non-building the minaret, including the city conservator, and ask questions about its failure, which would produce some kind of knowledge. Well, we didn't produce much knowledge, unfortunately, because, for example, the conservator simply left the room, not really answering the question. The major question which we asked, or actually I asked, completely enraged by the situation at the end, to the city conservator, was how could you, as a political representative of a local government in, it was 2009, argue that this project shouldn't be realized because it's culturally foreign, because that was the argument against it. So I managed to left without answering this question. And sadly, the project ended up in the gallery rooms in, well, not many locations, but that was actually the major venue where we showed it, is the museum in Łódź, Museum of Modern Art in Łódź. The show was called Hospitality, which is, you know, playing words about being, well, you understand, not welcoming the strangers, receiving them, it's called, it has a subtitle, it's receiving the strangers. So we had a maquette, a model, films, lots of information, and one of the performances that was actually the most successful part of the project, which was marching backwards. One of our members of the team decided that walking backwards would be sort of walking back in history to the times where this country was multicultural and much more open to the difference of actually any kind. So these are the rooms of the museum, and this is the end of the story in a great shortcut. So the chimney remade as a chimney.
Okay, thank you very much for this introduction, and I will not allow questions or comments now, because I think we will pass directly to Dr. Monika Pawłowska's lecture, and then we will have a discussion. So thank you very much. And somebody, I think, kept this list of signatures that I collected from you. It's okay. Thank you very much. And if somebody wants to join, please do it maybe during the later days.
Well, I've got a few photos the same as yours, so I can skip them. My idea of the talk was to tell you a little bit, there are three elements. One is the project that has just been presented, failed project, unrealized project, but still somehow existing in text, in discussions, in something that we learned, and actually in those facts that you and your team actually created in the public sphere in Poznań and providing knowledge in general. So one thing is the project. We just introduced that. I want to talk about the project in connection with the concept of counter-publics or subaltern counter-public, because Eva Maliska asked me to introduce this particular idea as was developed by Nancy Fraser. And all these two elements I would like to treat as a pretext to talk about something that I call the Muslim question and its impact on the European and Polish public sphere. Because I think all kinds of reactions to the Minaret project are just illustration of particular attitudes and approaches to the Muslim question. And it's got its special Polish variants, but also to some extent they are like imitation of some reactions to the Muslim question that are imported from European context in general. But there are some differences. We are not, I mean, so I will say a little bit more about that. So anyway, I skipped the pictures, you see we've got the same. I also emphasize the fact of this very meaningful location of the installation between synagogue and cathedral. Okay. Well, there are at least two reasons to discuss the concept of counter-publics in the context of Minaret. One thing is that over those years, when things were happening regarding the project, many things appeared in terms of institutional contacts, in terms of discussions, quarrels. You know, those reactions included obviously some support from particular groups of people, also contestation and opposition on the side of institutions in Poznan. You know, there were like millions of websites, not millions, but anyway, like people were writing texts that were critical, sometimes very aggressive against the project. There was a special website established just to contest the project, that was Minaret. You know? We had people coming to these meetings that were giving away anti-project leaflets, anti-Muslim, anti-Muslim in general. Yeah. There was a group, artistic group, who actually produced some artworks against project. I mean here the Krasnals, you know? Against you personally, actually, in a way. And we had all this kind of artistic initiatives that were supporting the project as well. So there was so much things happening in terms of art production, in terms of this press production, in terms of institutional links. Somehow we got in contact, and I would say the whole story around Minaret inspired me and some few people around me actually to get deeper into the issue of Islamic presence in Europe and also in Polish public sphere. So I'm talking about that to say that the whole phenomenon was termed by the project curator, Dorota Grobelna, the Minaret effect. That's what she said, that something was happening around the project which never materialized. But, you know, this effect was like fact. So that's one reason to talk about the project in connections with the concept of counter-publics. I would try to say that, I would try to show that in a way it would this counter-public activity and mobilization. The other thing, the other reason is more linked, maybe not directly to the very artistic intervention of Joanna, but to the topic invoked by the project. So this Muslim question. And what is particularly interesting for me, and it's, I think, inspiring when we talk about this Nancy Fraser concept of counter-publics or subaltern counter-publics, is the very geometry, I would say, of reactions towards the project. Because on the one hand, there was this strong opposition on the side of authorities. On the other hand, there was support obviously not strong enough, not institutional, etc., etc., so the project failed. But those reactions were much more complex. We don't have this binary opposition of hegemonic discourses that in the end were against Minaret versus pro-Minaret positions from the side of critical artist who is concerned